Coming up on this episode of the KickCast, cut things with ultrasonics, a journal for dads, and keep your lights clever. So sit back and relax. It's time for the KickCast. Hey everybody, it is time for the KickCast, the podcast where we go out and find crowdfunding projects and let you know if you should backtrack or sack them. I am Ktdata, one half of the show, and joining me is my co-host, the man who can create a documentary that will move and inspire you and want you to do better in your life, and then still somehow manage to shake weight the microphone in the Q&A after, the one and only Drew Tyler. How you doing today, my friend?
I am fine, thank you. Did I really? Did I?
Yeah,
didn't I?
You shook the microphone. And I had to keep myself from laughing because I don't think anybody else in the audience made that connection.
No. So it was broken, and I was trying to figure. It's what you do. You shake things when they don't work. But yes, I was happy to see you at our screening of our documentary. It was very awesome to see everybody there. So welcome. I'm happy to be a part of the show once again. Episode 124?
Yeah, 124 right? Of these. That's a lot considering that we only do it every 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's years. My friends, that is years of Casey and Drew.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you have stuck with us since episode, what did you join? Episode like 10?
30. 10? No, was it 10? Might have been like 10, 20. That was early.
Pretty early. Thank you for hanging around. And I know you're here for Drew and not for me because no one ever comes to listen to me.
But we're all. Yeah.
But if it's your first time watching, first of all, welcome to the show. Before we jump into our projects tonight, we have a couple news items to do. And what's great about these news items are that they're kind of news, but they're a little geared more for project creators. So our first one this is an interesting one. So Drew, you know how describing your project is always an important thing that we mention to people. What's even more interesting now is specific words that you put together may change how well your actual project goes. So there was a bunch of these researchers, I can't remember where, right here, from the HE School of Management from Université Paris-Saclay, so I'm thinking in France. What they did was they actually did an analysis. So they took a range of projects, and then they narrowed it down. So they looked for projects from April 2009 to February 15th, 2017. They took out all the art-related ones because those ones tended to be more based on how pretty they looked. So they took those out, and then they also kept it just to base it on in the U.S. So they actually have a little bit smaller sample set to look at. And then they picked the 9 largest categories. So it was like food, hardware, technology, and video games. And what they found out, this is the most interesting thing, because if you actually said your product was useful or it was novel, it tended to get boosted and be more successful. However, if you mentioned that it was both useful and novel, that actually dropped the amount of pledges down by 26%.
Whoa. That's interesting. And they got data to back this up?
Yeah, so what they did is they took all the information and they ran it through a machine learning algorithm that analyzed all the different denotations. So all the words that aligned with usefulness or novel, and did the analysis of that. And that's the data that they found out. And what was even more interesting is no matter how they kind of try to move the data around, those numbers still remain true. So,
so it was statistically sound, it was solid. Wow.
So, they were trying to, let's see, what was it? Our econometric model also took into account of seasonality, the growing Kickstarter community, the perceived risk or tentative nature of a project, and other potential error variables. No matter how we slice the data, our findings stayed robust.
Wow. They must have had a lot of data to go into that. That's got to be some big set of numbers that they were chasing. Well, I'm impressed.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. And then so they broke it down. Why were people kind of turned off when it says both novel and useful? Because in the business world, you want it both to be novel and useful to be considered quote unquote innovative. But I
Right,
guess in
right.
the mind of the backers, it wasn't and so they broke it down to it could just be a matter of credibility of the backers. So if it's your first project, no one's ever heard of you, that actually
Mhm.
may be a detractor because people are wondering, is this guy really going to be able to do
Right.
it or not?
Can you pull it off, right?
Or are you just exaggerating your numbers? The other one would be risk aversion. So they may believe, they might think that you as project creators is, it's going to be great, but the proper execution it's too risky, you know. So like say their example was, how would you be willing to invest into or back a project if they said, we're going to introduce a teleporter, where you're like, I don't know about
Pretty
that.
risky.
That or the product is too polarizing, so they believe that the crowd's going to be on one side or the other one, and so they're really hesitant to back their project because let's say social media networks, those ones, we see a lot of those. You don't see a lot of them be successful because people sometimes are skeptics, like, why would I need this instead of just using Facebook or Twitter or something already out there? Or it'd be the other way. Oh, this is amazing, I'm going to go all in on it, and then not get the groundswell you need for something like that to be useful. So
Interesting.
kind of they're still kind of hashing out through the data, but they're like, what you got to do is look at it at the marketing point of view instead of kind of the more scientific stuff. Is that you want to, why your product inside and out. Say, Drew, you're gonna make a candy dispenser, and every nook and cranny of that candy dispenser, and you see why it's important to have that candy dispenser to protect your candy stash.
Yeah.
You got to convince the person who's going to back your project that they need it too, and be in that mindset knowing that, it makes sense to you, but it might not make sense to them, and you got to convince them to do that, and you got to communicate why this is actually a need. So being able to persuade people is very important.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's kind of our first news story about, when you're putting together your project, make sure it's either novel or it's useful, but don't put two of them together because that seems to detract people away from it. So our second piece of news is a little bit more for project creators. And if you've watched the show before, you know that Drew and I, we're always a sucker for a good animated GIF in your project.
True. It's beautiful.
So this is an entire Mashable article about one project. So the project is called what was it called? The Pacific 67 Ultimate Kitchen Knife Collection. But they put down animated GIFs or GIFs of how the knives are being used. And this is what you want to put in your project. If you're going to make a product, put in an animated GIF of it being used. I mean, like, I could stare at food getting chopped and sliced all day on the screen.
It's crazy that they did an article. They just did an article on the fact that there were great GIFs on a Kickstarter. That's fun.
Yeah, I mean, but like, would you be more inclined to buy these set of knives after seeing these, or just a static image?
Well, for sure, watching it cut bread without smashing, for sure. Watching it in action is great.
Yeah, so it's that's why we kind of remind you, if you are creating a project and stuff, think about what you could do in an animated GIF. Like we've seen stuff where people show the setup because it's so quick, you can just do it in 2 seconds, or it being used or something like that, because adding that little bit of motion and just it not being a static object can drive people to want to back their project a little bit more. I know in a lot of the board game ones, they'll have the pieces kind of move around and stuff as you scroll along the page, so you can kind of see where they go on the board and stuff like that. So, like, do you have any recommendations in terms of adding animated GIFs? Because really, those are just soundless short video clips.
Right. Which the nice thing about it is that they load fast and nobody has to hit play. Like, you start scrolling down the screen and things are happening. So whatever your object is, your product or whatever you're making, it's there and you're watching it and you can see it doing things. So it's an absolute, if it's done right. Sometimes we say GIFs and people think of funny memes, right? The things that we're sending with Giphy and our funny text messages. These on this particular project are the full width of the project. They're a great size, and even if they're GIFs, you can scroll right through them and you get a really good sense of what the product can do. So that was a win-win for them.
Yep. All right. So that's all the news we have. Now it is time for our kick shouts, and these
Kick
are
'em out,
these
shouty
are
shout.
our Twitter length shout outs that you guys can send in, or if you're running a project, send it in and give us just a quick Twitter length. I shouldn't say Twitter length because now it's 280 instead of 140. But yeah, just give us a really short description that we can read on the air. So the first one we actually got sent in, and they just launched today. They were super excited about it. This is called Sidekick, and it's the everyday carry phone backup and portable charger. So it has a lithium booster battery built in. It has a flash drive built in. It also has a quick charge cable and a phone data backup. What's cool about this device is that if the built-in battery is dead, what you can do is actually go to the store and buy, I think it's D batteries, and plug it in, and it will work right here. Or C batteries. These are either C or D batteries to give your phone that like quick boost. Say you need to make an emergency call or something like that. It's not going to charge your phone all the way up, but that's a quick way, and batteries are available everywhere.
Interesting.
So that's kind of a cool, neat device, and they've tried to make it do almost everything. So. And then our next one is called Sorcerer, and this is made by one of my favorite game companies because I don't think I've ever played any of their games, and I've played most of their games that I didn't like. So it's called Sorcerer, and it's a dark fantasy game that melds the best elements of a strategy card game with a tactical board game. The essential idea is there's kind of 3 areas, and whoever's the first to take over 2 of those areas is going to win the game. And you do that kind of by playing cards and battling, quote unquote, battling your opponent to get to get that card. So that's a quick one. If you just want to search for Sorcerer, it will show up on Kickstarter. Both of them are on Kickstarter. So Sidekick and Sorcerer. All right. Now it is time to go on to our main project. I'm excited about this. So
You've had some good ones today.
So Drew, do you like cutting things?
I do like to cut things.
I know you don't like to cut your wrists. No one should cut their wrists.
No, don't do this.
But I like to cut stuff, but I shouldn't be trusted with sharp objects. Let's be honest about this, especially in the kitchen. It's not the greatest thing for me. But this seems cool because have you ever had those DIY? House always needs some improvement, right? No matter what.
Oh, and as we were talking before, you're married. Like that's one of the things you get to do. Lots of improvements.
Yeah.
Lots of projects.
Yeah, and sometimes you're just like trying to, replace something in your house, and you just need to like shave off a little bit, or just get it to fit right, just perfectly, right? And it's always like you got to pull out the X-Acto knife, and you're like sort of semi-sawing or just going super slow. I'm like, why? I just need to easily cut this rounded corner or something to make something fit, and it just doesn't work, right? So our first project of the night is called the Wonder Cutter, and it is a ultrasonic cutter. So the way it works is the blade actually vibrates at 4,000 vibrations per second, so you can't see it. But while it's doing that, it actually allows you to cut through a lot of different materials pretty easy. So it can cut through plastic, leather, Formax, I don't even know what that is, acrylic, plywood, and the only things that can't really cut through is metal and glass because,
But just about anything that an X-Acto knife could cut?
Yeah, anything an X-Acto knife could cut, but it can actually cut it with more efficiency because how many times have you used that X-Acto knife and it's just had a mind on its own and it's gone off key?
Every time I've X-Acto knife, like it goes south. Like it's tough. So this one, it's less pressure because it's doing the kind of...
Yeah, so it's kind of cutting almost more like, cutting through butter, quote unquote. So you don't have to worry about it. And what's nice about this is because there have been ultrasonic cutters out there before. The problem with them are they're always, you got to plug them into the wall, or they're giant, or they're really expensive. Like I looked up some of them. You see this a lot more in industrial applications, and those are like $1,000 to $2,000 or more. For this one, it does that, but it's battery powered, so you can actually hang it on your belt. So say their example was, say you were in the factory and you needed to just trim something off. And so instead of having to take it to a bench or something, you could just cut it where it's hanging and kind of finish that off.
So it's an ultrasonic X-Acto knife, but but it's battery powered.
Yeah, it's battery powered. So they say the charge lasts for about 3 hours when it's running, but it can go down a little bit more depending on the material you're cutting through.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I love this idea and just being able. And what's great about it is they say with using the vibration technology, so people who have like arthritis and stuff who can't really move their hands that well, this actually allows them to grip the actually cutting blade and actually cut with more accuracy than using an X-Acto knife. Because with an X-Acto knife, you got to do the like pencil thing, right? Or have I been trained to use X-Acto knives wrong? So I love the idea of just, I need to cut through something. I'm just gonna pull this out instead of trying to, edge my way with an X-Acto knife or something like that. Do you see like this could be something that you would want to use?
I would use it. I could it's not all that often I pull something out and I want to like cut it for practical uses. I could see it used for art type thing, art like paper designs or wood. I saw some great stuff at the Pinners conference. Yes, I went to the Pinners conference, and they had some really cool artsy type of things that were like CNC laser cut, and I could see it being done with this a lot like smaller, like a little easier. Yeah. So I think this is a really cool idea.
What's crazy is, and like I don't do any kind of a lot of this DIY stuff, but they show you can cut through a circuit board. So say you're one of those kind of tinkerers with Raspberry Pis and stuff and trying to make it fit in enclosure. Like you could cut through that circuit board pretty easily. Or I think one that you're probably familiar with is with the 3D printing, and you got all that spaghetti that's hanging off. This could slice through that easily, so you can trim it down. The one that actually caught my eye is I build those Gundam model kits. And have you seen those model kits that are on the tree?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So normally what you got to do is you got to take a pair of snippers, and then you go in. You don't want to clip all the way at the edge of the model kit, because what happens is it leaves divots in the plastic, and you have to go back and fill it out. So what people do is they kind of cut it with a little bit nub, and then they just sand down the nub so they can apply it. With this you can actually get pretty close to it, and it's not going to leave that divot because it's going to cut straight through really quickly. So like that's why it caught my eye. I'm like, oh, I could actually use this. Now with the price, this is a little expensive. It's about $300, but
that's what I expect though.
Yeah, it's not that bad, because I thought I'm like, that's kind of pricey. But when I went back and looked at all the other ones, like I said, the industrial ones are $1,000 or higher. There is another one from Japan that you have to import from Japan that is about $300 too, but it's a plug. You got to plug it in the wall, so you can't really take it with you. This one, I love the portability of it, because I could totally see this. If I'm outside trying to do something, I'm like, oh, I just need to trim this real quick. I can just pull that out and cut through it instead of trying to. Yeah, I've done a lot of things that you probably shouldn't do when cause like I don't want to take it down, so I'm just gonna try to cut it there. And I feel like this could solve some of my problems when it comes down to that. So is this a backtrack or sack for you?
I think this is back to me. There's something really unique about having a battery operated, X-Acto knife. Like this just for crafting. I think I would use this for a number of things. I'd even use this just around the studio. I mean, there's always things that are getting in the way that are, cables or parts to sets or designs. But it sounds like if it can cut everything but like glass and metal, I could do some damage with this thing. I could make some art with this.
Yeah, because I'm looking at cuts, balsa wood, felt, fabric, leather, MDF.
I'd balsa the crap out of that thing.
So, like, yeah, I think, and the funny thing is, somebody actually asked the question on, is it loud or not? And like, you're mostly not gonna hear the vibrations of it. So it's just gonna be normal for you. If anything, it's like when you go to the dentist and they use that sonic cleaner on you.
It's really high pitch. So,
yeah. This one is definitely a back for me too, because I'm like, I probably could get more use out of this than I think. And also like how it has a little bit of safety where you can stick it into the thing so the blade's not cutting you. Because
how else are you gonna dangle this thing on your belt pack?
Yeah, I'm not the smartest person when it comes to doing kind of those things.
And they're designing this. They're like, we've got to have a holster like a gun, so people like KT have a place to stick their pokey.
Yeah, so they're not dumb. So that is the Wonder Cutter. And so this kind of advice, Drew, do you kind of write this down as reference for future generations or anything? Or it should be, because this seems like wise advice, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think our next project may actually help you with this, because this does not apply to me right now.
No, it may not apply to you. But the next project it's a little bit more like the sentiment and the hope. We're talking like journals. I don't know if you do any journaling. I have on and off over the years.
I apparently do the digital
journal.
version of that by vlogging things. So maybe I
There
should
you
just
go.
start leaving tips for my non-existent children in the videos.
And that would line up just perfectly with this project. So the second project that we're going to talk about today is a guided journal for dads. It's called The Post, and it's just a classy looking journal that it's built well. It lays flat. It's got great paper. It's got all the things that you'd want in a journal, but it goes a step further than that, and it comes with guides, like prompts. So as a father, as somebody who's raising a kid, there's something special about holding that kid in your hands, like when they're this big. When they're bigger, it's still special, but it's a different hold, right? It's like, stop moving. We're in the middle of church. Don't do that. Right? But when they're young, when they're babies, there's just something about having like your own offspring that you think, wow, I wish the world upon this child. I want my girls to have everything. I want them to have integrity and drive and motivation, and I want them to know like what my passions are, so that they can find their passions and be inspired by me. So what I love about The Post is that it was built specifically with this idea of dads writing things for their kids. So not just open blank page, January 1, woke up today. It was a great, I had a nice binger last night because it was New Year's Eve, right? Most journals.
Are you putting that in your journal?
I've never said that. No.
I was just checking, because it seems like that came out way too easy for you.
Most journals, it's like a daily record. Here's what I did today. And when I look back at some of the journals of my ancestors, that I have a handful that have been found and transcribed, or I've been able to find them in archives. So there's some really interesting things in there. And once in a while they'll get onto a topic that's like, oh, this is really interesting and inspiring, good advice. But it is really like day to day, like did this, did that, talk to this man. So this post has these prompts at the top of every page that are thought provoking, and some of the things that they put on the post are simply like, what do you believe or want to hope for your children? What were the thoughts that you had when you had your first child? What were the thoughts when you first met the kid's mom or your wife? So there's something about it that you could sit down nightly or every other night or however, once a week, pop open a page and have something to think about that is poignant, that if you're in the right mood, you could write down something, knowing that the audience that's intended, like, they'll be growing up slowly. So this is the post. It's a prompted journal. It's kind of a guided journal for dads. I'm sure if this goes well, they'll make one for moms as well. But it's a really neat. I mean, think about this: on your kid's 18th birthday, they're moving out, they're going to college, and you hand them this classy-looking journal, and you say, "Hey, keep this on your shelf for when you need some extra help, or you need some inspiration, or if you just want to know more about me." Like just that. Even if they're often married and they get this, like, "Hey, here's some of the thoughts I had," and they get a chance to kind of think about what their parents are like. We don't think about things until it's like all of a sudden like weighs heavy on our mind when we're older and having kids. That's why the first time I started thinking, oh, my parents didn't do too shabby, right?
Yeah, it's always like that. Like, Mom,
25.
Dad, you're always wrong. You don't understand.
Yeah.
It's just, and then you're like,
Right.
oh crap, they actually knew stuff.
Right? So there's a moment there where that totally makes sense. And I think that with a journal like this, it's kind of a really cool way to capture the moment, capture the thoughts and the hopes, tuck them away until they're ready to say, I wonder what my dad thought about this. So the story behind this actually is really cool. One of the team that was producing this found a journal while he was unpacking and setting up his house. He found, well, not a journal, but a letter from his dad. And as he read through the letter, it was like, this is stuff I didn't know. This is stuff that, like, I wish I would have known. And so it kind of sparked this idea of, what if I was writing letters to my kids? while they're growing up, and then why not put that into a packet? So first day today, their first day of launch, they've already hit almost 13% of their goal, so they're at 2,200 out of 17,000 to get this posted, to get the book put together. But the pledges, early birds start at like $25 for a copy of the post. You know, to get a nice book like that, you'd probably pay 35 or 40. So great tiers. So the other thing I love is that if you even like, I think they have it still going. If you just want a PDF, like some of us are like,
just a book right there. See, this is where I tell everybody, always have that $1 level. That $1 level is sometimes just everything's awesome.
Yeah, just get it. And this one is like a step above we'll give you a big thank you, right? This one is, we'll give you a PDF version when we're done. You can go print it yourself. You can put it into your own backing, or you can just print it as you need those guides, or fill it out online, make it digital, and then bundle it up, send it to a printer when you want to. So like, there's no excuse not to. Anyway, this is a project I think did a lot of great things. This is the post. I've already backed it, by the way. So backtrack or stack, I've already backed at the double level.
Because you got to get 3 of them, right?
I almost got. Because
you got to get 1 each, right? Or are they just gonna share one, right?
They better share one. No, I was honestly thinking like this makes for a fantastic like wedding gift. I have a lot of students that through the years they'll get married, and this would be a really cool like, hey, congrats on the marriage. Think about these things while you're preparing for kids in 5 years.
Yeah, so you definitely need 3 of them then.
Now you got me. I'm like, maybe I don't. I got a 2-pack, but I'm not going to give one away. I'm probably going to need to write the same thing in 3 different journals.
Yeah.
Or I give them both the hardbacks away, and I digitally like keep track of the one that my girls get.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. Like, if this is successful, I thought I was like thinking of all the other things they could do. One of them is like, because do you remember those Evernote notebooks where you could just take a picture of the page and it would automatically do the OCR and stuff? Yep. Like that could be another one. And I even thought about it is once you get it digital, they could even create a service where it would like periodically send these like one of your entries to the kid's email address at specified times. You're like, okay, wait until my kid's like 20 or something, and just like once a month or once a day get that, and just be like, I think that'd be really cool. So I love this idea. I don't have any good knowledge for people. It's really just like, okay, I did this and don't do that because that's dumb.
Can you imagine like the next iteration of this doing something like, even when you pass on, having these prompts somewhere in a database somewhere, so that the kid sends an email or text or however we're communicating 20 years down the road, and you're dead and gone, and they send a note that's like, hey, what did my dad do this? Or even like an email to your dad, dad at dad.com. I know, like you send them, they'll know, and it just responds. It just grabs you some sort of inspirational content written by your own family and just sends it back to you and says, hey, son, this is what I was thinking. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like that longevity. It's living in the future, and that would be kind of a crazy fun way to do that. But love it.
Yeah, I
really classy and clean.
Yeah, I love this idea, and this is actually what's going to happen to the show when I die. Is it's going to just be take random clips from old episodes of you and I and put it together new episodes, and it's just going to be all great.
It's just some AI is going to start assembling, and we'll have like episode 6,453.
It's like these guys died 43 years ago, but they're still making an episode. They're still making a podcast.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, like it's pretty and it's great, and I really do hope they make a mom's version and stuff too, because if I gave it to my mom, I don't think she'd write anything in it other than like, you wasted your money on this. Why in the world did you?
Maybe it would just be like, I don't need to give you any advice. I've already taught you everything. You just don't listen. I already said everything. You just don't listen.
That's probably what I put in my journal. I'm like, you missed out on your chance, bub.
You could have had everything.
Sorry. All right. So for our last project tonight, this was the one you guys voted on. And I think this actually might excite you a little bit, Drew, because I know you are one of the guys that I know is Mr. I'm going to make a smart home, right?
I have a pretty smart home, yeah.
So right now you have the Philips Hue bulbs and stuff. Have you ever thought of but the problem with the Philips Hue bulbs are they're pricey.
In fact, I spent, because the set that I have, they're about $50 a bulb, I think.
Yeah.
And I have 6 in my front room. Only 2 of them are color because that was even more expensive.
Yeah, because those are like, yeah, I looked at,
But
because I thought about it. I'm like, that's a little too expensive for my.
But I do love it. Like I turn on the strobe effect or the music effect, and they just sit there and do like this rainbow show. It's like, I don't know. It's like having a dance party. It's kind of fun. So tell me what you have.
So this project is called the Kleverness, and they claim to be the world's smartest lighting system. So what it is it, of course, it has a hub that you hook up to your Wi-Fi router, and then the Kleverness is a wall plate that you can install right into your own, your normal light switch, and it can, one of the wall plates, even though it looks like it's only one, it actually can control 3 different light switches for each one of those. And what's interesting about this is between the hub and the wall switch, it creates its own mesh network, our radio frequency mesh network. So it doesn't need like Bluetooth or anything. It uses its own frequencies for that. And as you install more wall plates, they are repeaters. So you can create this whole network of things that run on its own network that's not going to be interfered if your Wi-Fi or stuff goes down. Of course, you're not going to be able to control it from your phone if the Wi-Fi goes down, but these guys are still independent of each other. And what's cool is you can control it by your phone, or it has motion sensors on it, so you can kind of do the Star Trek thing where you swipe your hand over it and can turn the lights up and down, which personally I think that's a cool thing to do. So they're starting with light switches right now, and then their next idea is to actually go for the full home automation. But this is kind of the base, because they're like, the first thing most people do when they start home automating things is with the light switches. And what's great about this system right here is it actually works with Apple HomeKit, Google Home, Amazon Echo, or the Samsung Smart Things Hub itself. So what that means is you could be like, hey, Siri, turn down the lights in the living room, or or Alexa, turn on the kitchen lights. If I set off any of your guys' stuff, sorry. But so you can do that. So they work with kind of, I think those are those 4 are kind of the major guys out in the market right now in terms of smart home control. So that already kind of gives you more ways of control. So you can have the light switch now, you have your phone using their app, or you can use your smart devices that sense for you to do all of that. So I actually kind of like how they built from it. The only thing I'm a little skeptical about is they left it at the lights, and they're a little vague on what their plans are next. So, if they just stick with the lights, that's okay. But what are they planning on expanding next in terms of your home control? Are they going to add like door sensors or window blinds and stuff? I do like the scheduling, which is really cool because it can tell when you're home or not. And what's cool is you can actually do geofence. So when it detects your phone in the geofence, it will turn on, so it can turn on like your front lights or your house lights as you walk into the house and stuff. I always think that's fun because I'm always usually the guy with like 20 things in my hands and can't get to the light switch. So I'm like walking in the dark. I do that more often than not. And then a lot of swear words come out when I stub my toe.
I know this line. Yeah.
And you have to worry about like sharp Legos and stuff on the ground, don't you?
Yes, I do.
So I really like it. I also like how nice it looks because if you look at this, it's just kind of these 3 lights and it shows you what's going on and off, and it's, unobtrusive, out of the way. And I kind of like this base. So what do you think about this? Does this seem like it would fit into your home automation plans?
Yeah, like there's a really interesting. I mean, basically you're switching out light switches, like the actual like plate. You take a plate off and rewire it and put one of these things in its place, and that makes a lot of sense. Like for home automation, right? Because the bulbs, like you're saying, like to have special bulbs. I haven't fully checked, but they use Wi-Fi. They're sitting on my Wi-Fi, and so I don't know how much of my traffic, or what little traffic is being affected by that. But having this tied in directly into whatever lights you have, to be able to say, Alexa, do this and turn that off and hit the kitchen, that's kind of what, like, You can even set up bundles and say, shut down the house for the night, and it would just hit all those Klever switches.
Yeah.
So I think this is a fine way to go.
I should ask you. Ask you. Do you know what an N wire is?
N wire?
Yeah. So it's called a neutral level wire. Your Nest
is it inside my wall?
Yeah, it's inside your wall. Your Nest may have it, but that's actually how some of the home automation systems use to communicate with each other. This does not need that installed in your house because it's using that RF mesh network, their proprietary network with that. So it gets around that because I know my house probably doesn't have it, and I really don't want to pay to get that installed.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if I have it or not, but my Nest works. But that makes sense, right? Then it can communicate and like share with the information with its parts and its pieces. I think the one that interests me the most is the outlet, because if I just replace these really sexy looking outlets, I could have Alexa turn on TV, PlayStation, and lamps, other things that are plugged in, and they sell big giant $80 things that what is it, like the Wemo?
Yeah, the Wemo. So that's the funny thing is they actually have a comparison on their site of the Cleverness, the Lutron, the Wemo, and the Wink. I'm not familiar with Lutron, but I know Wemo and Wink, and they kind of show you the difference. So the price point is actually a little cheaper. So the Wemo doesn't need a hub, but it's at $50, whereas they're about $44 for a hub and then $44 for a switch. But you're getting all these extra features that they don't do, like the radio signal. Oh, I forgot. It even monitors your energy consumption. So it tells you which bulbs are using more power than other bulbs because it's wired into the system, so it can detect how much the power usage is going. And so you can know how to be like, oh, I just need to go swap that one out, so it's going to save me battery. The program that runs it, there's supposed to be an AI that can start emulating your frequency of using lights in different places. So if you're away, you can set the program and it will turn on and off the lights like how you would if you were home in the first place. So people are like, oh, they're home, because there's lights on.
Things are moving.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I really love it. So, does this sound like a kit that you would want to jump into?
Yeah. And the one that I really like is that one with the two outlets and the hub, because it would kind of fit, everything that I'm already doing kind of slides right in there and still connects with the Alexa smart home that I've been slowly building. But it seems like a great idea. It's definitely a back for me. And the fact that they're only like, $260 something away from the goal.
Yeah.
They're that close.
Which is nuts because they launched today or yesterday. They are just barely brand new, because the way I find these projects is I sort by newest, and this was pretty high up on the list.
And whoever's been pushing this, wherever they've been building their audience, it's working.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Facebook. They have 1,600 followers on Facebook. Maybe there's some others, but whatever they've been doing, like, it's working, because when you have a first day launch to hit your goal on first day, you've got that traction we've always talked about, right?
Yeah, and I like it. They're a startup in San Francisco, where there are tons of startups in San Francisco, but I feel a little safer when you're trying to do one of these quote unquote platform products where things are going to be centered around it, that they are local-ish, so they might not disappear the day after. So I really like it. It's a back for me too, because they have different things. And what's nice about this is if you back in the Kickstarter, you get a lifetime subscription to their app, because there are some apps out there that when they do an upgrade, it's a paid upgrade. Wirecast.
And you were stuck.
So, that way you don't have to shell out another, whatever, $10 or something for version 3 of the app. They're guaranteeing that they're going to continue and help it grow, because they know this is kind of just lighting is a starting point. Next thing you know, you'll be able to integrate your, I don't know, your door locks and
door locks would be nice. That's what I would love.
Your laundry and your fridge and all that good stuff.
And the sprinklers. Yes, these are the ones I'm aiming for.
Yeah, the sprinklers are sprinklers are really what I want to get integrated. Like, I've been looking at them and I'm like, ooh, I need one of these. So that's all our normal projects. So it is time for our sack of the week. And this is a quick and short one. Drew, Halloween's over already. I know you were probably in the edit bay during Halloween, but
I missed the entire thing.
It's November, man. It's November, which makes me sad that you missed Halloween because you love candy, and
I do. And I didn't even get like daddy tax. Like I didn't even get the bag of candy. I got a little note from the oldest one that said, "Hey, here's some candy," and then she itemized the candy she left for me so that her sisters wouldn't take it. So it was like generously provided by your bean.
Is she going to be an accountant or a...
I don't know. It was pretty funny.
She itemized everything. Because if she is,
she did.
Let me know because I need somebody to do my taxes. So, but our sack of the week. This is an interesting one because I'm not quite sure what's getting sold. So it's called Red Coral Necklace, and it has a flexible goal of 1,000, and
12% of the way.
That's it.
The way there.
That's really it on the page.
That's all you know.
The overview says Red Coral, Indonesia from the sea, PNG. So it looks like they just copied the file name.
I love the graphic. Yeah.
Over, and that's what's under story too. And then you look at the perks. There's a $20 plus shipping for 10 grams of natural red coral. This is where I'm confused. I'm like, I thought I was getting necklaces, or are you sending me red coral in bulk where I have to make my own necklace? And
grams of necklaces.
Grams, yeah. Hey. That's not even a lot. Grams is not a lot. So yeah, we got 10, 20, 40, 50. Like, do you know what this is? Is it necklaces, or are we getting like raw coral?
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of times you buy beads. You buy beads in what we call hanks, and this looks kind of like a hank. You know, like so it's a big thing that can be turned into a necklace, or it can be like strung up as a necklace, or you can use them as individual beads. And so I wonder if this because it looks like just what we're looking at is a big like several lengths of coral. But Indiegogo does not seem like the place where I would go to buy red coral.
Yeah, like that's where it was confusing by me because I'm not sure what this is, and then you also have to pay shipping, but they don't mention anywhere in the obviously they didn't put anywhere in the project description on how much shipping it is because they're in Indonesia.
That might be costly.
Yeah, so sure you could be getting $20 or 10 grams of natural red coral, but it might cost you $100 to ship it here. I have no idea.
Yeah, wow. I don't know either.
And there's like 3 backers that have already done it.
So somebody thinks it's okay. Like somebody's ready to buy it.
Yeah, and this comment is kind of weird too from Miss Selena Fine. I'm already paid your coral. I will check your coral. If good quality, I will buy 1,000 grams.
Hey man, you want to buy 1,000 grams? I give you a kilo. You just hold on for a second. I give you a kilo. What? What do you want?
I just like what? That's why this is why this made it as a sack of the week. I'm just like, what? I just don't understand. And add some description.
No, it is red coral Indonesia from the sea.
Natural.
PNG.
What if you're buying 10 grams of the PNG? Like 10 grams of data. I don't know. Are they gonna print 10 grams worth of this picture and send it to us?
That's it. That's what you get.
That and it only has 6 days left, which is weird. So I guess they did like a week of funding.
Oh wow, yeah. What's the chances?
I'm just so confused. I'm so confused. If anybody can explain red coral necklace to me, that would be awesome. Because I just don't know.
Yeah, this is weird. Like this is like it just seems like it's out of place. It seems like somebody stumbled and maybe it was supposed to be Etsy, maybe it was supposed to be eBay, and they ended up on Indiegogo and they're like, yeah, this is good enough. Throw it up here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. And
I don't want to buy some though.
Are you gonna buy 10 grams of red coral necklace?
I kind of want some coral beads for fun.
I'd be afraid like this is a phishing scam and somehow they like steal your data, and next thing you know, you have all these purchases on your credit card and they're not candy related, so it's not you.
So it's not me. What a sack! What a sack!
Yeah. But so yeah, that's that. And unfortunately, that is the end of this episode of the KickCast. If you guys have any suggestions for sacks of the week or projects or kickshouts, you can always reach us, kickcast@ktdata.net, or leave it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/kickcast, or you can do the tweeter thing because tweeting is still cool, right? I think.
Yeah, we tweet.
At Night20 for Drew, at KTData for myself, or at KickCast for the show. We check it avidly. I check it avidly, at least, to make sure. And check out kickcast.com for our past episodes and stuff. So, Drew, do you got anything to pimp? I'm waiting for your I'm waiting for your documentary to like make it to Netflix and stuff, and I can be like, I know that guy that made that.
Yeah.
I think he remembers me.
Catch up on my grading. I think that's the next step, is to figure out where distribution happens and how it goes. But that's it. I got nothing.
Well, hopefully you just give all your students C's and call it good, right? So here's hoping for passing grades for Drew's students. And so our next episode is it's getting to the weird part of the year where the holidays are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We have it registered for November 21st, which is the week of Thanksgiving. So we'll see if Drew's in a food coma or not.
Say Tuesday. I'm probably still gearing up. I think we might be okay.
All right. So make sure you guys watch. You can find that at twitch.tv/KTData or live.kickcast.net. I think that still works. Maybe, possibly. I don't know. URLs are hard. All right, guys. So we will see you in 2 weeks, and maybe Drew will even have a fuller stash.
We'll see if I can find this one.